August 15, 1977, Ohio State University. A radio telescope called Big Ear is scanning the night sky, listening for signals from space. It's a routine night. The computer is recording data automatically. Nobody's even watching. But at 11:16 p.m., something happens. For 72 seconds, the telescope detects a signal so powerful, so unusual, so precisely tuned that it seems impossible. A few days later, a young astronomer named Jerry Eman is reviewing the computer printout, and when he sees this signal, he can't believe what he's looking at. He grabs a red pen and circles it, and in the margin, he writes one word: "Wow!" This is the WOW signal, the most famous potential alien message ever detected. And 47 years later, we still don't know what it was. Was it aliens trying to contact us? Or something else? Today, we're diving deep into one of the greatest mysteries in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Welcome back to Beyond Our World, where science meets mystery. I'm your host, and today we're investigating the WOW signal, the most compelling evidence we've ever detected that might prove we're not alone in the universe. This isn't science fiction. This is real data, recorded by real scientists, that remains unexplained to this day. If you're new here, we explore space mysteries, cosmic phenomena, and the greatest unknowns of our universe using real science and evidence. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because we upload new space mysteries every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now, before we dive into what the signal was, we need to understand how we search for alien civilizations, and why this one signal stood out from billions of cosmic noise. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI, is based on a simple idea. If advanced alien civilizations exist, they might use radio waves to communicate. Just like we do. Radio waves travel at the speed of light and can cross vast distances of space without being absorbed or scattered. They're perfect for interstellar communication. But space is noisy. Stars emit radio waves. Pulsars emit radio waves. Quasars, black holes, nebulas, all kinds of cosmic objects produce radio signals naturally. So how do you tell the difference between a natural radio source and an artificial alien transmission? You look for specific characteristics. Natural sources tend to produce broad spectrum noise, like static. But artificial signals are narrow band. They're concentrated at a very specific frequency, like tuning into one radio station instead of hearing all stations at once. And there's one frequency in particular that SETI scientists focus on. It's called the hydrogen line. 1,420 megahertz. This is the frequency at which hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, naturally emits radio waves. Any civilization sophisticated enough to build radio telescopes would know about this frequency. It's like a universal channel. If you want to send a message that other intelligent beings might detect, you'd broadcast near the hydrogen line. And that's exactly where the WOW signal appeared. Let's set the scene. It's the summer of 1977. The Big Ear radio telescope at Ohio State University has been scanning the sky for signs of alien intelligence since 1973. Big Ear wasn't a dish like most people imagine. It was a massive flat reflector, about the size of 3 football fields. It would point at one section of sky and listen as Earth's rotation slowly moved that section through its field of view. Each point in the sky would be observed for exactly 72 seconds before rotating out of view. The telescope had 2 receivers, or horns, positioned side by side. This was important. If a signal appeared in both horns, 3 minutes apart as Earth rotated, you'd know it was coming from space, and not from some local interference like a passing airplane or CB radio. The data was recorded automatically on computer printouts, pages and pages of numbers representing the strength of radio signals at different frequencies. Most of the time, it was just 1s and 2s, representing background cosmic noise. But occasionally, you'd see higher numbers indicating stronger signals. Usually, these were just random bursts of interference or natural cosmic phenomena. On August 15, 1977, at 10:16 p.m. Eastern Time, the Big Ear telescope was pointing at a region of sky in the constellation Sagittarius. And something extraordinary happened. One of the receivers detected a signal that registered off the charts. The computer printed numbers representing signal strength. Normal background is 1 or 2. This signal went 6. E, Q, UJ5. Wait, letters? Yes. The computer used numbers for values 1 through 9, then switched to letters. A equals 10, B equals 11, and so on. So the sequence 6EQUJ5 translates to 6, 14, 26, 30, 19, 5. The signal started at moderate strength, built to an incredible peak of 30 times the background noise, then faded away. The entire event lasted 72 seconds, which was exactly how long any cosmic source would be visible in Big Ear's field of view. This wasn't a brief spike. It was a sustained, powerful transmission at precisely 1,420.4556 MHz, right next to the hydrogen line. The frequency was so specific, so narrow, it couldn't be natural. Natural sources don't work that way. A few days later, volunteer astronomer Jerry Amon was going through the printouts. This was tedious work, scanning page after page of mostly meaningless data. But when he saw 6EQUJ5, he stopped. His training kicked in. He recognized immediately that this was unlike anything he'd ever seen. The signal was strong, it was narrow band, it was at the right frequency. It lasted the right amount of time. And it matched the expected pattern of something coming from deep space. He grabbed a red pen, circled the sequence, and wrote "Wow" in the margin. He didn't mean it as a name, it was just his immediate reaction. But that margin note would become the most famous annotation in the history of SETI. Because this signal, the wow signal, remains the most intriguing potential evidence of alien communication we've ever detected. So what happened next? You'd think the scientific community would have immediately mobilized. But remember, this was 1977. Communication was slower. And the Big Ear team was small, mostly volunteers. Jerry Amon and his colleagues were excited but also cautious. They knew the first rule of SETI. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. One signal wasn't enough. They needed to detect it again. They pointed Big Ear back at the same region of sky the very next night. Nothing. They tried again and again over the following days and weeks. Still nothing. In fact, in the 22 years that Big Ear continued operating, they never detected the signal again. And that's the frustrating mystery. If it was a continuous beacon from an alien civilization, why did it only appear once? If it was a deliberate message sent toward Earth, why only 72 seconds? If it was just interference, what could possibly create such a perfect signal at such a significant frequency? Let's examine the evidence more carefully. The WOW signal had several characteristics that made it extraordinary. First, the frequency. 1,420.4556 MHz is protected by international agreement. It's illegal for humans to broadcast at this frequency because it's reserved for radio astronomy. This reduces, though doesn't eliminate, the chance of terrestrial interference. Second, the signal strength. At its peak, it was 30 times stronger than the background noise. That's an incredibly powerful signal. For context, typical cosmic sources might be 2 or 3 times background. 30 is extraordinary. Third, the signal was narrow band, less than 10 kHz wide. Natural cosmic sources produce broad spectrum emissions. Narrow band signals are the hallmark of artificial transmissions. Fourth, the signal's intensity followed a perfect bell curve. It grew stronger, peaked, then faded, exactly as you'd expect from a source that Earth's rotation was carrying through the telescope's field of view. If it was local interference, you'd expect a different pattern. Fifth, and this is crucial, the signal appeared in only one of Big Ear's 2 horns. This is actually the biggest mystery. If the signal was from space, it should have appeared in both horns, 3 minutes apart, as Earth rotated. But it didn't. Only the first horn detected it. This is the piece of evidence that makes many scientists skeptical. So let's talk about possible explanations. Over the decades, scientists have proposed several hypotheses. The first and most exciting is the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Maybe it really was aliens. Maybe an advanced civilization sent a brief, powerful signal toward our solar system. Maybe they're broadcasting to thousands of star systems. sending short bursts to each one to announce their presence. If you're trying to contact many civilizations with limited power, you wouldn't broadcast continuously. You'd send brief, powerful pulses to as many targets as possible. From this perspective, we just happened to be listening at the exact moment their beams swept past Earth. The fact that we never detected it again makes sense. They moved on to the next target. This hypothesis is appealing, but it has problems. Why send a signal that lasts only 72 seconds? Why not repeat it multiple times to ensure detection? And why did it only appear in one of Big Ear's receivers? The second explanation is terrestrial interference. Maybe it was human technology. A satellite, an aircraft, a secret military transmission, or even a CB radio operator accidentally broadcasting at the wrong frequency. The problem with this explanation is that 1420 MHz is protected. Very few devices operate there. And the signal characteristics, especially the bell curve intensity, matched a source in space, not something nearby. Also, the Big Ear team was experienced. They knew what interference looked like. They'd seen thousands of false positives. This didn't match any interference pattern they encountered, but they couldn't rule it out completely, especially because the signal only appeared in one receiver. If it was truly from space, both receivers should have seen it. The third explanation involves Earth's own satellites. In 1977, there were already many satellites in orbit. Could one of them have reflected or transmitted a signal that Big Ear picked up? This is plausible. Some satellites do operate near protected frequencies, and a satellite in just the right orbit could potentially create a signal that appeared to come from deep space. But again, you'd expect some pattern of repetition as the satellite orbited Earth, unless it was a one-time malfunction or transmission. Here's a more recent theory that gained attention. In 2017, astronomer Antonio Paris proposed that the signal might have been caused by a comet. Specifically, comets 266P Christensen and P2008Y2 Gibbs, which were in the same region of sky in 1977, though they weren't discovered until later. Comets emit hydrogen as they warm up, and hydrogen naturally emits at 1,420 MHz. Paris suggested the WOW signal could have been a natural emission from one of these comets as Earth rotated past them. This hypothesis generated headlines because it seemed to finally explain the mystery. But it has serious problems. Most scientists don't accept it. Here's why. Comets do emit hydrogen, but the emissions are very weak and diffuse. They don't produce the kind of strong, narrow band signal that was detected. Measurements of similar comets show they produce signals about 100 times weaker than the WOW signal. Also, if it was a comet, we should have detected similar signals from other comets. We haven't. The comet hypothesis tries to explain the mystery, but the math doesn't work. The signal was simply too strong and too focused. Another natural explanation involves interstellar scintillation. This is when a signal from a distant source is temporarily amplified by clouds of gas or plasma in space, acting like a lens. Maybe there's a natural radio source out there, like a pulsar or magnetar, and its signal was briefly focused toward Earth by cosmic chance. The problem is, we've never detected the source again. If it's out there, why haven't we found it? And interstellar scintillation usually doesn't produce the perfectly smooth bell curve intensity that was observed. So where does this leave us? Decades later, with more advanced technology, no one has detected a repeat of the WOW signal. And that's significant. We've searched that region of space with more sensitive instruments. Nothing. We've scanned nearby stars in that direction. Silent. The signal appeared once and never again. Let's talk about what happened to Big Ear and the search for the signal. The radio telescope continued operating until 1997, when it was shut down. The land was sold for development, and the telescope was demolished to make room for a golf course. Yes, seriously. One of the most important instruments in the search for alien intelligence was torn down for a golf course. By that point, funding for SETI had dried up. The government had stopped supporting the search in the early 1990s. Private organizations tried to continue, but Big Ear was too expensive to maintain without funding. Its destruction remains a tragedy for science. If the WOW signal ever repeated, we no longer had the telescope to detect it. However, other radio telescopes have searched for the signal. In 1987 and 1989, Robert Gray used the meta-array at Oak Ridge Observatory to search the WOW signal coordinates. Nothing. In 1995 and 1996, he tried again with a more sensitive telescope. Still nothing. In 1999, he used the Very Large Array in New Mexico. Silence. More recently, in 2012, on the 35th anniversary of the signal, humanity sent a response. The Arecibo radio telescope in Puerto Rico broadcast a package of digital data toward the same region of space. Images, text, videos from Twitter, all sent at the same frequency toward the source of the WOW signal. This was both symbolic and practical. If there's a civilization out there, and if they're still broadcasting or listening, maybe they'll receive our message. But there's a problem. The signal came from the direction of Sagittarius, which contains thousands of stars. We don't know which star, if any, it came from. Our response was broadcast in a general direction, but it's a shot in the dark, and even if it reaches the right place, and even if someone receives it, we won't hear a reply for potentially thousands of years. That region of space is very far away. Here's something fascinating that many people don't know. In 2020, the Breakthrough Listen project, funded by billionaire Yuri Milner, revisited the WOW signal location using the Green Bank telescope in West Virginia. They observed the area for hours, scanning millions of channels simultaneously. They found nothing resembling the original signal. But they did detect millions of candidate signals, most of which turned out to be satellites, aircraft, or other interference. It showed how difficult SETI work really is, finding a real signal in an ocean of noise. But it also showed that with modern technology, if the WOW signal repeated, we'd probably detect it. So the fact that we haven't is significant. Either it was a one-time event, or it's so rare that we've been unlucky, or it wasn't what we hoped it was. Let's consider what it would mean if the WOW signal really was aliens. First, it would be the most important discovery in human history. Proof that we're not alone. That intelligence exists elsewhere. That life is common enough in the universe for us to detect it with 1970s technology. Second, it would tell us that alien civilizations use radio communication, which means they're roughly at our level of technology, or they were at some point. Really advanced civilizations might use methods we can't detect yet. Quantum communication, neutrino beams, modulated gravitational waves. But radio is something we understand. Third, the fact that it hasn't repeated might tell us something about their strategy. Maybe they're scanning the galaxy, sending brief signals to thousands of systems. Or maybe it was an accident, a leakage from their technology, not a deliberate message. Or maybe they sent it once, long ago, and we caught the edge of it as it swept past. Fourth, the distance matters. We don't know how far away the source was. If it's 100 light-years away, the signal left their world in 1877. If it's 1,000 light-years away, it left in 977 AD. Whoever sent it, if anyone sent it, they might not even exist anymore. We could be hearing a voice from a dead civilization. But we also have to consider the possibility that it wasn't aliens, that it was an unknown natural phenomenon. Space is full of surprises. We've discovered pulsars, quasars, gamma-ray bursts, fast radio bursts, magnetars, all kinds of things that would have seemed impossible before we detected them. Maybe the WOW signal was something similar, a natural phenomenon we don't understand yet. Some kind of cosmic event that produced a brief, powerful, narrow band signal at 1,420 megahertz by pure coincidence. This seems unlikely, but we can't rule it out. Science requires us to consider all possibilities, even ones that seem improbable. Here's the truth. We don't know what the WOW signal was. After 47 years of analysis, debate, and searching, it remains a mystery. Jerry Eman himself has always been cautious. He's said repeatedly that he doesn't know if it was aliens. He hopes it was. But he's a scientist. He demands evidence. And one signal, no matter how compelling, isn't proof. It's a data point. An intriguing, tantalizing, frustrating data point. But not proof. To prove it was aliens, we'd need to detect it again. We'd need to find a pattern. We'd need to decode information from it. We'd need multiple independent confirmations. We don't have any of that. All we have is 6EQUJ5 on a computer printout and decades of questions. So what's the current scientific opinion? Most astronomers remain skeptical that it was aliens, but they don't dismiss it entirely. The consensus is roughly this. The signal was real. Something happened that night in 1977. The characteristics were consistent with an extraterrestrial source, but also consistent with several other explanations. Without a repeat detection, we can't draw conclusions. It remains an unexplained event, an anomaly, a question mark in our data. And that's actually how science works. Not every mystery gets solved immediately. Some mysteries take decades or centuries. Some never get solved. The wow signal might remain a mystery forever. Or tomorrow, we might detect it again, and everything changes. Looking to the future, our ability to search for alien signals has improved dramatically since 1977. The Allen Telescope Array, the Green Bank Telescope, the Square Kilometer Array currently under construction. These instruments are orders of magnitude more powerful than Big Ear. If there are signals out there, we're more likely to find them now. The Breakthrough Listen project is scanning millions of stars, covering wider frequency ranges with better resolution. If something like the wow signal happens again, we'll catch it. And we'll study it with tools Jerry Eman couldn't have imagined. We'll analyze it in real time. We'll point multiple telescopes at it simultaneously. We'll rule out interference definitively. We'll try to find patterns, information, structure. We're ready. The question is, will we get another chance? Is there someone out there still broadcasting? Or was the wow signal a fluke, a one-time event that we'll never see again? So here we are, 47 years after that August night in Ohio. We still don't know if we detected aliens. We don't know if we heard a voice from the stars or just a cosmic burp. We don't know if someone out there is trying to reach us or if we're shouting into an empty void. But we keep listening. Because the wow signal showed us something important. It showed us that SETI is possible. That if there is a signal, we can detect it. It inspired a generation of scientists to keep searching. It reminded us that the universe is full of mysteries. And maybe, just maybe, some of those mysteries are calling out to us, waiting for us to answer. So what do you think? Was the wow signal aliens trying to contact us? A natural cosmic phenomenon? Or something else entirely? Drop your theories in the comments. Some of you have incredibly creative ideas, and I love reading them. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of SETI's greatest mysteries, hit that like button. And make sure you're subscribed with notifications on because we post new space mysteries every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Next time, we're exploring Area 51. What's really hidden inside America's most secretive military base? We'll separate fact from fiction and examine the real science and technology being developed there. Until then, keep looking up and keep listening. Because somewhere out there, someone might be trying to say hello.